Hey anglers, thanks for tuning in. You're watching In Deep on the Delta. My name's Steve Cooper, and this is the weekly Delta fishing report for the week of May 6th. We're going to keep everything that you need to know in this report. We're going to throw everything else out. So we're going to make it short and sweet. We'll start with the stripers. Striper bite is good. It's not on fire, but people are catching fish. It's a little breezy out here. It's affecting the largemouth more than it is the stripers. Expect a little wind, but if you can get out here, now may be the time. It seems like everyone's catching fish. There's a good quality of fish out here. Outdoor Sportsman reported one of their customers had a 23-pound fish today, and they're hearing lots of fish lots of fish, relatively. There are fish in the 15-pound class that are being caught, so those are good-sized fish. I talked to Captain Randy, talked to Captain Jeff Soo Hoo from Soo Hoo Sportfishing. He's had an incredible week. Great numbers. The fish for him this week weren't as big as last week. He's got fish up to 16 pounds, but he's getting some 40, 50, 60 fish days. He's finding the fish tightly balled up. Last week he was trolling for him. This week he is fishing mostly live bait and spooning on top of them. So the stripers are schooled up tight. Find a school of them, get on top of them, spoon them up, or throw some live bait on them. You're probably going to have a lot of fun. That's the striper report. Let's get right into the largemouth bass report. And I'll start off by saying that I was out at Russo's for the BBT Northern Regional Bass Tournament. That was Saturday. And I want to direct some of you hardcore largemouth guys to another video that I am uploading today, and it's going to be called the BBT Northern Regional Team Wrap-Up with Randy Pringle. And what that is going to be is a in-depth interview with the top 3 teams. And Randy Pringle, who most of you guys know as the fishing instructor and also the director of the BBT, was gracious enough to let me come in and help with some of the interviews. And we went into a lot of detail on not only how they did the day of the tournament, but what they did in practice, how much time they put in, what they had to change to be successful on tournament day. We're going to talk about baits, strategies, everything that they did to get on that podium. So whether you're a weekend angler or a tournament angler, I think it's going to be a real interesting interview, and I've got it cut up so it's really precise on what they were doing, and the questions are very precise, and I think it's going to be really interesting, and it'll give you a good insight into their head on what they did to be successful. So check that video out. And again, I think it's going to be called the In Deep on the Delta BBT Tournament Wrap-Up with Randy Pringle, something of that nature, but it'll be put up today. Let's go over how they did. Number one, Saturday was just, I guess they had a couple hours to fish in the morning where the breeze wasn't kicked on, but by about 10 o'clock or so, it was blowing 20, 25 gusts to 30, and it was a nasty day. So the fishing was tough. And you have to remember, these are the guys from the north. They're not the local guys. So it's a pretty good indication of what happened out here on the Delta. So, first of all, I watched the entire way in, and I listened to Randy talk to the guys as they were weighing in, and it seemed like Saturday everyone was catching stripers up to 15 pounds. Every guy that had a bag of bass, a largemouth, said, "Man, I wish we could weigh some stripers." And I caught striper, I caught striper, I caught striper. So anyhow, they had a great day for striper fishing. Not so good for largemouth bass. One bag broke 20 pounds, and that was, I think, 20 pounds 9 ounces. That's tough fishing. 50th place out of 94 boats was right around 10 pounds. A lot of guys didn't weigh in, and a lot of guys did not get limits. But what was impressive, I think it took right at 17 pounds to cash a check. But there were a lot of guys in that, I'll say 13 to 16 pound bag that didn't cash a check, but that's a pretty darn good bag. So there was a bite going on, and if you were on it, you caught fish. If you weren't, you didn't catch fish. The word of the day for catching fish tournament day on Saturday was fish slow and fish with the worm. That's all I'm going to tell you. We will go into a lot of detail on some of the other things that went into the successful guys fishing that day, but it was pretty much all slow fishing, not a whole lot of reaction bite. So again, check out the video that I'll be putting up for the BBT roundup. My experience is what I'm seeing out here. Number one, we've got, it's windy. I can't tell you right now, don't let this fool you. I'm tucked into one of the only places that I could find where the wind's not blowing, and I'm sure it's going to be blowing 25 today. The next week or so, they're predicting wind, and the weather forecast as far as wind goes has been pretty spot on. So if you're thinking about coming down to the Delta from out of the area and you see that that wind is blowing 20 to 25, it's probably going to be a good, true wind report. And if you want to deal with that, great. But if not, you might want to save your days off and come when the weather's a little more conducive to having some good bass fishing. Water temperatures are right around 68 degrees. They haven't moved up a whole lot. I've got reports from way up north, up about around Walnut Creek, where they only have 2 feet of visibility. I was way down south, did really well one day with a friend. He took me down and we fished some of the southern area that I don't usually get into. Water clarity down there was about 4 to 5 feet. We had about 17 pounds, and everything was on worms again. Everything was slow. My partner did catch 1 or 2 fish on a frog, and there is kind of a minor frog bite. We'll go into that a little bit later. But the clarity down south was not quite what it is. Like I say, probably 3 to 6 feet down south, which is pretty good. I'm in the central Delta right now, and I'd say we got 6 to 8 feet of visibility easy. And the word of the week, the last couple weeks, and the word of tournament day, if you wanted to see a bunch of big fish, go to the clear water, but if you want to catch them, go to the stain water. Remember that. I think that's a big clue to fishing out here and being successful in the next week or so. So we got good water temperature, 68 degrees, good clarity. Look for the stained water. Everything, I also want to say that I'm seeing a lot of successful spawn. There's a lot of fry running around in the last 10 days or so. I'm seeing more and more. So some of these fish, more and more fry. So some of the fish that have already spawned have been successful. That's a good thing. I'm seeing these balls of fry roaming around, and they're pretty much all over. So it's just not one little region. So that's a good deal. I have still hugged the bank, and I'm looking around in here, and I'm seeing a lot of areas that look like fish were on them spawning, and they are gone. The inshore now in that 3 to 5 feet of water where you can see hard bottom and there's old beds, those are abandoned. And everybody during the tournament said the same thing. Hey, we saw some fish in practice, in tight. We thought we'd be doing a little bit of sight fishing. Man, the day of the tournament, they were gone. So maybe it's because of the wind or whatever, but the fish that were in tight spawning are gone. We may have to wait for either warmer water or the next moon phase and hope another flight comes in, but nothing is in the shallows. Everything is in that drop off at the transition zone. And everything that I've caught has been on plastics. Again, take a worm, green pumpkin is the top producer, any other dark worm, and fish it any way you want, whether it's wacky, Nico, drop shot, just fish it as slow as you can fish it. So that is number one. I know it's getting old hearing that, but man, I'm telling you, that's what you want to do if you want to catch fish. There are a few frogfish coming, but it's not consistent. There are punch fish coming. If you get a day or an area that you can come in and do some punching, you can be successful punching. And I think a lot of these big fish that haven't gone out to the ledge may be tucked in real tight. So don't forget about punching. The jerkbait bite died this week. Also, chatterbaits, which were picking up fish last week, I'm getting a few fish on chatterbaits. It's not consistent, but I've got a lot of reports from guys that this week we're catching them on spinnerbaits, and I think they may be catching them on spinnerbaits because they can get in to some areas that a lot of guys may not want to throw a chatterbait, and they're able to bounce the spinnerbaits off of maybe logs and tules and obstructions, you know, that you can't really get a chatterbait in there. So spinnerbaits came back into play. I've got no reports at all no action on crankbaits. Now, if some guys may be catching them on crankbaits, but they're not talking about it. So that's the report, guys. It's I'd say fair to good depending on the day, but it is not great. With that, check your weather. We're going to get a lot of wind, which probably means that the water temperature is not going to bump up a whole lot. So I think we've got to get a couple more degrees around that 70 degree mark before the top water starts. If you're out here, I mean, I've got a top water on today, and I caught one striper, and I've had I think I caught one small fish. The big fish aren't coming up to top waters, at least for me. Guys, that's my report. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. Check out that interview with the BBT players, and I think you'll get a lot of information out of that. And if you like the report or the interviews, let me know, and I'll start hanging around some of these tournaments and seeing if I could talk to the directors and maybe get some real in-depth reports from the guys that are willing to talk, that are successful. So guys, thanks for watching. Hope you guys get out here and have a good time. We'll see you guys next week.